Quiet on set, please. And action.
Hi guys and welcome back to the channel. In this video I'm going to go over my top 10 favourite Dolby Atmos movie scenes. So picture this. You've set up your home cinema system equipped with Dolby Atmos and you've been enjoying it for some time now.
Great success.
But after telling your friends and family how incredible it is, you may feel it's time to bring them round and showcase your system. Or maybe you'll invite your next door neighbour who's already had a taste of it. To give you a head start, I've compiled a top 10 list of the ultimate Dolby Atmos movie scenes to bring out the best in your system. I have selected the following movies based on 3 criteria: how immersive and enveloping they are, how well they utilise each channel, and how well they harness the full potential of the object-based sound of Dolby Atmos. With so many great Atmos soundtracks available now, it was quite a hard task to narrow it down to just 10. But remember, this is only my personal choice and it will be subjective, so if you've got any further recommendations, leave a comment down below. But now, without further ado, here is my top 10. We start off at number 10 with A Quiet Place and the basement scene. This track is a great demonstration that Atmos mixes don't always have to be loud and bombastic to be effective. And with this film's clever sound design, it's the more subtle atmospheric ambient sounds that builds up the suspense. Around 45 minutes into the film, when Emily Blunt's character is about to give birth and goes into the basement, you really get a sense of her fear and anguish, as it feels like you're down there as well, hearing her every breath. And as the monster is on the hunt above, its deadly presence is felt, with each thumping footstep and chilling raspy clicks coming through the height channels, accompanied by some deep thuds from the LFE. Once the monster makes its way down to the basement with her, the tension and drama continues as the sound moves down into the surround channels with more monster-related creaks, clicks and bangs, followed by an alarm going off, sending the creature into a frenzy, bumping into things and screeching loudly, which can all be heard in the lower channels. Marco Beltrami's musical score nicely accompanies the scene with good soundstage presence, further emphasising the fear and desperation. This is a great Atmos track in the horror genre, and it's easy to hear why it was nominated for so many awards for its sound design. At number 9, it's Dune and the Sandworm reveal scene. Dune's sound design is a carefully crafted sonic world, rich in texture and nuance, drawing the viewer into the desert landscapes of Arrakis, with its subtlety as much as it does with its scale. Just under an hour into the movie, Paul and his father take a flight in an ornithopter to oversee the spice harvest, and the purring wings of the dragonfly-like craft buzz through the soundstage, along with a nice ambient hum for shots inside the vehicle. Then as the sandworm approaches and things start to go awry, the ornithopters dive down to assist the rescue and then shortly land. What follows is a fantastic array of masterful sound design. As Paul steps off the craft, you can hear each soft footstep on the sand, whilst Hans Zimmer's mystical score swoops in, resonating through the room before Paul drops to one knee and takes a handful of sand, leading to authentic sounds of the gritty granular dust as it cascades through his fingers. More swirling winds, haunting score elements and purring sounds from the ornithopters then continue to engulf the soundstage for a few moments, when suddenly Paul gets caught up in a deluge of sand and things quieten down, with tinkling granular sounds, unearthly voices and a seamless integration of Zimmer's score being the only sounds occupying the speakers. The soundscape awakens again as the scene comes to a climatic end, with Paul and Gurney making a mad dash to the ornithopter as the sandworm emerges. Dune's Dolby Atmos mix is a track of epic proportions and a worthy addition to anyone's collection. Up next at number 8, it's Deepwater Horizon and the oil rig explosion scene. This is an Atmos track that I feel often falls under the radar amongst the best regarded mixes on the format, but with how expertly it conveys the drama and disaster depicted in the film, it's definitely one not to miss out on. At around the 50-minute mark, as they're conducting a series of tests on the oil rig, the crew start to notice things aren't quite right, and this is shortly followed by an eruption of liquid mud triggering a massive blowout throughout the rig which produces forceful splattering sounds all around the room through each speaker. A chain of equipment malfunctions follows, coupled with a failed attempt to seal the well, which subsequently ignites the oil, causing a massive explosion. And this is reproduced to great effect in Dolby Atmos, with ricocheting rivets, groaning girders and ferocious fires, saturating the soundscape. There's plenty of impressive effects in this sequence, and quite a few that will have you looking up and ducking for cover, all making this a great demo-worthy scene. At number 7 it's Godzilla, King of the Monsters and the Awakening of King Ghidorah. Like all the Monsterverse movies, pretty much every scene involving the monsters is demo-worthy in Dolby Atmos, but this particular scene is a standout. The scene begins as the team fly into Antarctica in various large aircraft, and the roar from the jet engines rumbles through the heightened surround channels, followed by the release of the 2 Ospreys from the belly of the USS Argo, which has some thunderous blade slap going overhead. The soldiers then go into the facility, and we get some light echo and resonance from inside. Then when they come across the enemy, a large explosion occurs and a firefight breaks out, leading to shouting, screaming and plenty of whizzing and ricocheting bullets. Then after a brief standoff, Dr. Emma detonates a series of bombs scattered in the ice wall where Ghidorah is located, which creates a torrent of smashing, crashing and falling ice through the soundstage, followed by more devastating destruction as the facility is totally destroyed and swallowed up, which produces some solid bass response. Subsequently, King Ghidorah is awakened, bringing with it a whole host of roars, smashes and powerful lightning blasts, among many other monster-related sounds. And then if things weren't crazy enough, the main man himself, Godzilla, shows up, and the creatures engage in a vicious battle, inflicting total mayhem upon the listener. To top it off, a fleet of aircraft arrives, blasting a barrage of missiles at Ghidorah, creating a range of explosions across the listening space. If you want a monster-themed movie that will put your system to the test, give this one a spin. Coming in at number 6, it's Gravity with a spacewalk scene. Not only does this movie boast strikingly realistic visuals, but it also features an incredibly well-designed Dolby Atmos soundtrack that further enhances the realism. In the opening spacewalk scene, George Clooney and Sandra Bullock's characters are performing a hardware upgrade on the Hubble Space Telescope, and as they are having a conversation amongst themselves and with Houston, the track effectively reproduces the deafening silence of space against the lines of dialogue. Then as they are warned of an expanding cloud of space debris heading their way, Stephen Price's musical score builds up, hiding the tension before the debris strikes the craft to devastating effect, sending the soundstage into a frenzy as voices swirl chaotically around the room from speaker to speaker with great directionality, made all increasingly more frightening courtesy of further well-integrated score elements. This is a great scene to demonstrate good panning, directionality and soundstage presence. At number 5, it's Blade Runner 2049 with the climactic fight scene. To be honest, the whole movie is amazing in Dolby Atmos, but if I had to recommend one particular scene, it would be this, as it's a great demonstration of object-based audio and water-related effects. The first thing that stands out in the scene is the dramatic music from Hans Zimmer and Benjamin Wallfisch with the track Seawall, that pulsates and reverberates throughout the room as it builds up to the final battle with exhilarating effect. The speeding whoosh of the 3 cars travels through the soundscape before Kay arrives, blasting them out of the air and sending them crashing down into the water, with gunfire, explosions and onboard warning noises all occurring in the surrounds and heights. Once they're down in the water, waves frequently crash over the vehicle and into the overheads as the fight breaks out and the car becomes increasingly submerged. When the viewer is taken inside the vehicle, there are some nice water effects as the camera hovers around the surface, sometimes going under the water and then coming up to the surface again, which is replicated realistically in the soundstage, leaving the viewer feeling like they need to gasp for air with the characters. This is just one of many great scenes in this movie, and it's sure to impress your friends. If you enjoyed this type of content, why not hit the like button and consider subscribing and following me on Twitter and Instagram at Chris at the Movie to stay up to date with the latest physical media news. Coming in at number 4, it's the helicopter chase in Mission Impossible Fallout. If it's constant height speaker activity that you're after, then this is a good choice. The chase involves 2 helicopters, a Eurocopter EC-145 and an Airbus H-125. And as soon as Tom Cruise jumps onto the swing load underneath the H-125 heli, the viewer gets a real sense of the power of the aircraft, with thunderous blade slap coming through the height channels. And as he makes his way up the rope and onto the side of the heli, the sound grows even louder. What further adds to the immersion of the scene is how the sound design adapts to the different camera angles and the movement of the 2 helis, with the sound panning across the height channels and sometimes dropping into the surrounds, all based on their whereabouts. Once he climbs on board the heli, he must fight to gain control of the aircraft, which leads to it spinning out of control, and that creates some nice swirling panning effects around the soundstage. As the chase continues, Henry Cavill's character resorts to getting out a machine gun and starts firing at Cruise's heli, which produces some thunderous blasts from the LFE as the bullets whiz past the viewer through the surround channels. Then as the chase comes to a dramatic end, there is a plethora of warning alarms going off before the 2 helis come down in spectacular fashion, which all comes through the height and surround channels to great effect. Visually, this is a very impressive scene and an incredible stunt performed by Tom Cruise. Plus, if you own the physical 4K or Blu-ray discs, you'll also benefit from the expanded IMAX aspect ratio. But the real bonus here is that this is an all-round great Atmos scene and a brilliant demo for height speakers.
What the hell is he doing?
I find it best not to look.
In at number 3, it's the first major battle scene from Fury. Fury's Dolby Atmos soundtrack is not only a brilliant mix for its environmental ambience, with almost constant bombs and mortar blasts going off in the background throughout the movie, but it also packs a real punch in the dramatic battle sequences, and that's why I recommend you view the first major battle scene at around half an hour into the movie. As the tanks drive off the road and over the hedges onto the battlefield, you get a real sense of the weight and heft of the vehicles, with a nice low-end rumble through the subwoofer, along with an assortment of chatter from the troops in the surrounds as they prepare for battle shortly before they come into contact with the enemy and all hell breaks loose. An eruption of machine gun fire follows, with bullets zipping through the soundstage, creating metallic clanging sounds as they ricochet off the body of the vehicles, and inside the tank you can hear the machine gunner above you blasting through the height channels. Then the main tank gun is put into action, producing some solid explosive booms, before the enemy fires back with some high velocity whistling anti-tank rounds. As the scene continues, there's plenty more explosions, gunfire and ricocheting bullets, all accompanied nicely by Stephen Price's score, which has some great musical extension through the height channels. If you haven't experienced Fury in Dolby Atmos, it's worth checking out. At number 2, it's Unbroken, and the opening scene featuring the bombing run. Although this film was released in the relative early stages of the Atmos format, it's very apparent right from the opening scene that director Angelina Jolie and co. clearly understood the benefits of Dolby Atmos and how evocative great sound design can be. From the moment the bomber aircraft fly overhead and the loud drone of the engines can be heard in the height channels, the soundstage comes alive with a whole host of activity. And as the viewer is then placed in and around the main aircraft, you're treated to a range of atmospherics such as wind and turbulence, the creaks and groans of the fuselage, and varying degrees of engine sounds. As the aircraft reaches its intended target and the bomb bay doors open, they are then surrounded by some intense flak, which makes great use of the object-based audio as the explosions go off around the room. The tension is further heightened when some enemy fighter planes approach, which whiz around the soundstage with good spatial awareness, accompanied by some heavy gunfire from the gunners which booms through the subwoofer. The next few minutes features more of the same qualities, with frequent fighter plane flypasts, continuous thunderous gunfire, and a bombardment of ricocheting bullets. This is a fantastic demo-worthy sequence that puts the viewer in the heart of the action, with plenty of great activity throughout all the channels and some solid thumping LFE. Before I reveal my number 1, here's a few honourable mentions. First up, it's the Batman with a Batmobile chase. I really felt I couldn't leave this one out, as it's not only a great action scene, but the Atmos soundtrack really rocks as well. The scene starts off with the sound of the Batmobile's engine roaring and screaming as it lurks in the shadows, which nicely builds up through the soundstage alongside some deep grumbles from the LFE. Then as the Batman and the Penguin become involved in a high-speed chase, the viewer is engulfed in the sounds of bumps and crashes, screeching tyres, roaring engines, and passing traffic whizzing by and blaring their horns, which all comes through the surrounds to great effect, with some spilling over into the heights. Towards the end of the scene, you're placed inside the Penguin's car as he crashes and rolls over, which leads to a nice swirling effect, with shattering glass and thuds and bangs on the body of the car. The scene comes to a fitting end, with Michael Giacchino's Batman theme, which comes through with good clarity and a nice cinematic presence.
I got you! I got you!
Up next, it's Mad Max Fury Road and the first major chase scene. Back in 2016, Fury Road was up for many awards for its sound design, including winning 2 Academy Awards. And when you experience the movie in Dolby Atmos, it's easy to hear why. A short while into the movie, you are thrown into the first major chase sequence with a convoy of cars and trucks hurtling across the desert, making way for an abundance of lively and bombastic effects. Solid bass response accompanies the rip-roaring engines as they tear through the soundscape, soundtracked to the musical sounds of beating drums and the flame-throwing guitar, which plays out into the surround and height channels, along with the delighted cheers of the War Boys who chant and shout. Then things get even more chaotic, as Furiosa wages battle with the Buzzards, leading to vehicles colliding and crashing, an assortment of fire and explosions caused by the unique weaponry, and a flurry of sparks and razor-sharp sounds from a swinging circular saw, all encompassing the viewer in the surrounds and heights, accompanied by Tom Holkenborg's epic musical score. Later in the scene, the convoy heads into a ferocious sandstorm, which has violent swirling winds, fierce lightning strikes, and a few flying war boys, all nicely panning around the room to great effect. Not only is this a fun and engaging soundtrack, it's also a great movie as well, and comes highly recommended. And for my last honourable mention, it's Nope with a rain scene. One of the most striking things about Jordan Peele's Nope is the sound design, and how it cleverly uses subtle sounds to instill fear in the listener, or fill in the blanks for the more disturbing elements that you can't visually see, having you double guessing whether a light wind is just that, or maybe something else. The Dolby Atmos soundtrack takes full advantage of the sound design, leveraging the use of the object-based nature of Atmos for the more action-filled scenes. One such example of this is when Keke Palmer and Brandon Perea are in the house, and the UFO approaches, whilst Daniel Kaluuya is outside in the car. The scene starts off with pouring rain through the height and surround channels before the looming presence of the UFO is felt, as the surrounding area loses power and we head inside the house. Then as the rain gets heavier, eerie screams can be heard, as the UFO moves from the back surround channels through the listening space and over into the height channels, engulfing the soundstage. As the tension builds, things go a tad quieter, shortly before building up again as Michael Abels' Jaws-like score kicks in and debris starts descending on the house to terrifying effect. The viewer is then taken outside again with Daniel Kaluuya in the car, leading to tons more rain, thunder and a few haunting grumbles, all enveloping the listener. If you or your friends are into sci-fi horror, this scene should go down a treat. And now for my number 1. It's Ready Player One with the first challenge scene. This scene has got it all, featuring everything required for a brilliant Dolby Atmos demonstration, effectively utilising the whole soundstage with a masterclass in object-based audio. From the second the green firework goes off and the race begins, chaos ensues as a cacophony of roaring car engines whiz past the listener, before an abundance of car crashes and explosions as vehicles collide. Being set in a video game world, this is no ordinary race, and there's plenty of unique obstacles along the way. pop-up barricades, a train, a truck, and a few giant wrecking balls all make way for plenty more destruction and crashes, producing an array of sound effects in the surrounds and highs, all before the arrival of a giant dinosaur, which stomps and roars with great ferocity, creating some cool effects in the top layer, accompanied by some vigorous LFE. And if that wasn't crazy enough, we even have the appearance of King Kong, who causes even more destruction, as he leaps from building to building with more ferocious stomps and roars through the soundstage. With so much going on all at once, it almost defies description, and that's why I encourage you to check it out for yourself. Or if you've seen it already, put it on for your friends and family to enjoy and give them a taste of a true Dolby Atmos experience. So that's a wrap for my top 10 Dolby Atmos movie scenes. Now it's your turn. Let me know your top 10 list down in the comments below. Thanks for watching guys, enjoy your movies. Bye!